Monetize and measure social media assets is presented by Core Software with Adam Groh of Core. So without further ado, I'll just hand it off to him. Thanks.
Thanks, Caleb. Thank you, everybody. So I was supposed to be presenting with my co-presenting partner, Erin Prober from the Clippers. She had a family emergency. She had to leave town unexpectedly last night. So you guys have to just stick with me through some of these parts. And if at any point I don't sound like I know what I'm talking about, it's because those were her parts in the talk. But I think I have a pretty good grasp on it, and hopefully you guys will leave here and have a good concept of what the Clippers are doing in LA. So for those of you who are in Max's presentation, you saw this number. $6.58 billion are in the sponsorship market projected for 2018, a 4% lift over 2017. About $17 billion of those dollars are going into the sports sponsorship space. It's a lot of money. So let's go back to the basics for those of you who don't know what that $17 billion goes into. Well, this is the traditional partnership mix. Courtside signage, your traditional media, TV, radio, so forth. But as technology is being infused into our world, something becomes a bigger and bigger player. And that's the digital and social media piece. At Core, I fly around pretty much every week working with teams on their assets and their sponsorship as they buy our software and actually effectively take this inventory and put it into a true software system. And a lot of times that's a lot of consulting and helping them understand what their assets truly are and what they're worth. So as social's growing, according to IEG, 98% of all sponsors now leverage the social media platform. On the right, you'll see most important assets to sponsorships. You'll see that social media is now the second most important asset in all sponsorship deals to sponsors. You'll notice a little green arrow there next to it, and that's because as of last year, that was number 6. So within the last 12 months, it's now jumped up to the second most important thing outside of category exclusivity. Further down, you'll notice on-site signage, and why that's important and why I've highlighted that is traditionally, that was one of the premier pieces of assets that a sponsor could buy, is being working with that brand, being in the arena, in the stadium, and associating with that brand. So there's definitely a shift happening in the market right now. But there's a challenge to that, right? For those of you who work closely with teams, one is web banner ads. They're still the main way that these things are sold. Buyers understand the banner ads. The sales teams are comfortable selling them. But the problem is audiences aren't responding to banner ads as much anymore. Traffic is decreasing. Click-through rates are declining. .com is diminishing as it is. The second challenge is the way they sell it. So they're selling it as posts. So I can't tell you how many contracts I've seen at teams where it's 20 posts, 1 post per game, and so forth, all at a flat rate. And we'll talk about that challenge a little bit more in a minute. And then additionally, throw-ins. So how many of you here work with sales executives at a team on the sponsorship side and see all this sponsorship, social media assets thrown into a deal at the 11th hour to get it done? Traditionally, social media has just kind of been the throw-in, the added value to help get the deal done, yet it's now becoming one of the most important things, looking back at that last slide that I have, in a sponsorship deal. The brands are saying, this is what we want in a deal, yet we have our sales teams just throwing it in and giving it away for free. So the Clippers took a new approach, and this is where I'm gonna kind of try to fill in for Aaron here. So one problem is, going back, is social is treated more like signage, promotions, right, with a flat rate card, and not so much like media inventory, and it is media inventory, right? So for example, you're not selling a Super Bowl ad at the same price that you're selling a soap opera daytime ad, right? Yet teams are selling a tweet at the same price as a tweet at 10 a.m. as a tweet that is after a game with a huge epic game-winning shot. Does that make sense? So the way that these are structuring, there's value being left on the table. So when Erin joined the Clippers 2 years ago, she worked with the league office, and the league office had a model that allowed them just to evaluate retroactively their social media value. So they would take all the metrics in, plug it into a model, and then they actually could see what that value is worth. But the problem was the deal was done a long time ago. So they can't go back and retroactively bring back that value. They did one with Corona, for example. It was the final score of the game. After plugging it into the model, they realized that that one post per game in their contract was worth about 7 figures, just that one deal based on media value. And so essentially the deal wasn't even worth 7 figures, and yet this one asset that they had put in there was actually worth 7 figures. So they wanted to take it to the next level, and that's kind of where Core came into play. So I'd been spending a lot of time in LA working with Aaron and the sponsorship team on evaluating their assets and putting them into an actual sponsorship module. When we first started working with them, they literally had 34 assets on paper. That's a really low number for an NBA team to have. A lot of it was just made up, put into contracts in people's heads and so forth. So one night we were sitting there going through all this, and when we got to, when we got to the social media piece, we started talking about the digital stuff. And we needed something that was based on 3 pillars. And we started asking questions, and together we came up with this model based on these 3 pillars. So the first one is performance-based. So social media isn't just about putting the post up and then you're done and you've activated. There's a lot of things that come around with it. Impressions, engagements, views, clicks, all those different things. So can the model take all that in and create a singular currency around that? Media values. We need to understand the media value and what we're giving away in these social media models. And most importantly, flexibility. And the flexibility piece was huge because you have a sales team who's going out and they're just selling social media and they don't really understand what they're selling. They're traditionally, they're better at signage, they're better at all these different things, but they don't really understand digital. And that's true across the board. I see that all the time across all the teams we work with. So how can we build something that is flexible for the sales team, we can measure against true media values, and it's performance-based? So we created the concept of the CPick model, and I know this seems pretty daunting, but I'll take you through it in 4 simple steps. So one is applying the industry standard rates. So we went out, we grabbed those, I think the league office provided provided it to us, and we put it in there. Then what we did is we basically boiled it down and built a weighted model, normalizing all the assets across the board. From there, we were able to create what we call an interaction. So an interaction can be anything. It can be an impression, it can be an engagement, a view, a click, a like, a comment, right? But it's all boiling down into one simple formula that creates that flexible currency for the Clippers sales team to go out and sell with. And then the final thing we did is we packaged it in thousands. Because if you look at what one interaction is, essentially it could be 2 engagements, and no sponsor's really just gonna buy 2 engagements. They're gonna buy in bulk, they're gonna buy much bigger, and so we packaged it in thousands. Thus, SeePick, cost per interaction by the thousands. So what's up next now is I'll show you just a quick little clip of the Kia performance of the game. This is an activation that the Clippers do every year with Kia. It actually is built around the CPick model. This is something you would see on their social media. In fact, this one ran in February or December of 2017.
On the basket as well as away from the basket.
I'll probably stop it a little early.
Finds Wilson, the rookie, let it fly. Knocked it down, 3-ball, bingo, 6-5. Wilson for another pair. Bingo, 2 in a row by Jameel Wilson.
What Milos is able.
So I'll stop that a little early because it's a little bit longer of a model, or of a clip. But sorry, I'm just trying to get my notes here so I can get you guys these metrics. But essentially, this is what they ran on December 17th. It was right after Blake Griffin came back from an injury. And this is the CPick model. They put it both on Twitter and Facebook, so the numbers you're looking at are an aggregate across the two. So for example, they did just over 280,000 impressions, just under 1,800 engagements, and 32,000 views. When it gets put in the model, you can actually see at the very top the value that's associated to the Kia deal. It's an $87,000 investment in social media, which equates to roughly 125 CPicks. So this one post alone on Twitter and Facebook roughly came out to about 9 CPick and about 31,000 interactions. And so thus they've filled about 6% of their obligation to Kia. So they're able now to actually put value against it in a model, and now what it's doing is, A, it's helping them achieve what they're saying they're going to sell, but then when they overvalue or over-deliver, they actually can put value to that as well. So now the Clippers have 61% of their partners using this model. So about 2/3 of their all brands that they're working with are using it, with a 65% year-over-year growth using it for them. So it's been wildly successful. They're very happy with it. It's helping them retroactively look back at how much they gave away for free and then revalue during negotiations with their partners. In fact, they just did it with the Kia deal. And the partners are accepting it and running with it. It's been a really simple way for their sales staff to go out and actually sell social media without having to say, we'll give you 20 posts or 10 posts or so forth. They just sell their CPicks, and then depending on what the content delivers and how the content performs, the value is then delivered. So Aaron wanted to always lead people with a quick way to implement CPick for groups, and I'm happy to connect anybody with her if you guys are interested to chat with her and how they're really using it. But first is sales training. You got to have the sales team really know what this is and how it functions. Not down to the numbers level of the model, but just the concept of it. You have to have alignment across your digital sponsorship and analytics group. It's a team effort to really make sure that you guys are doing it the correct way. Incorporate it into your reporting, both internally and externally. So you need to report up to management with it, but then at the same time, you also need to use it in your recap decks and so forth. Create a digital playbook, so kind of looking at the deals that have been successful using CPick. And really from there, you can institute in your team. I believe there's 2 or 3 other teams that are now starting to use CPick since Aaron has started using it with the Clippers team in the past. So that is it. Hopefully you guys got some good nuggets out of that without Aaron being here, but we can open it up to questions now. Yep.
Can you speak to paid implementation and who does it? Is it the Clippers building out a budget to amplify their posts, or is it the brands that are implementing their posts? Obviously, that drives engagement.
Yeah, Aaron would probably have to talk to that one a little bit more. I kind of helped just architect the model, but she's really the one running with it with the Clippers and so forth. So I'm not sure. I think it's more on the Clippers end, and she actually bakes a hard cost into every single one of the deals. So if I went back to the slide, you'll see they're pricing one CPick at around $700 per CPick, and there's a $200 cost associated with it. And I think a lot of that goes back into the application that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In terms of like valuing assets that didn't previously have a value.
Yep.
My question is, do you guys have plans to extend it beyond the engagement? Because all you've done really is pricing engagement out. But if I was sitting at a brand like Kia, I would say, what business value are you actually delivering, and how is digital enhancing my ability to track the actual business impact rather than sort of repricing media?
Yeah, again, more of an Aaron question, but I think it's just starting to put, I think the biggest problem that we're seeing right now and why we started that is just they didn't know how to sell it, right? They had reps just out there. One rep would sell it one way, a rep would sell it another way, which when it comes to the activation piece and the fulfillment piece was very problematic. Also tracking, it was a pain. And so by doing that, they were solving just the sales problem. As far as the delivery problem goes, I don't know for sure what they're kind of doing to tackle that.
Could you speak to the flexibility piece of this? So when you're putting a deal together with a partner, so like what happens if you fulfilled everything that was promised for Kia? Do you just stop posting anything for Kia brand for the season?
If they fulfill it?
Right.
Yeah. No, they're not doing that quite yet. What it's allowing them to do is realize when they have fulfilled it, the value that they're going above and beyond for the partner, so they can put a number to it. And like I said, I believe it was with the Kia deal. Again, Aaron know more of these details. They went back and said, based on this model, we over-delivered by 10, 12, 13 times. And so you either need to scale back what you're asking us to deliver on content or increase your spend. I've talked with her about it a couple times, like, how do you do that? You know, do you say once you've fulfilled, you just cut it off and then go resell that slam dunk of the day partnership? It's tough, but they're not stopping it. It just becomes added value at that point in time. But at least it's putting a metric around it and helping them go back to the negotiation table and say, look, we're clearly over-delivering, so we need to figure out a better solution that benefits both parties.
How about vice versa? So if the performance isn't there by the end of the season, what's the flexibility built into the contract? The best way to execute that?
That's a good question. My guess is they'll start actually putting more posts out or whatnot. I don't know. I don't think to be honest, I don't think they've under-delivered yet. I think they've been pretty flexible in what they've been able to do, so they've only over-delivered at this point in time. But again, Aaron would know more of those details than I would.
For each team that you do this sort of modeling with, do you start from scratch and really look at each sort of casing scenario, or is there something standardized or proprietary in the way?
We just built this one with the Clippers, kind of ad hoc, while we were working with them on really redefining their entire asset portfolio in our system. Erin's been kind of driving it with other teams. She presented the same thing at Seed. It's a little bit of a different variation, and I think they're using kind of the same model that she's using. Anything else? Cool. Thank you.